Imagine booking a ticket to a permanent, 1980s retro beach utopia.
Oh, it sounds perfect, right?
Right. I mean, the music is blasting, the neon is glowing everywhere, and the party literally never stops.
It is the ultimate vacation destination. On paper, at least.
Exactly, on paper. Because there's a catch that your travel agent conveniently left out of the brochure.
A pretty massive catch.
Yeah, a lethal one. Because tonight, after the sun goes down, the temperature is going to spike to 180 degrees.
Which is just incomprehensible for a human body.
Yeah, if you don't drink the local water, you will literally boil alive.
Just completely cook on the boardwalk.
So welcome to today's deep dive. I am so thrilled you are here with us, learner, because our mission today is wild. We are exploring the extreme living planetary environments of Yaenddarr.
It is such a fascinating world to study.
It really is. We are looking at a world where climate, geography, and culture are completely bound to these, well, supernatural mechanics.
Yeah, they are entirely intertwined. You can't separate the weather from the magic.
Right. And we have pulled from a massive stack of sources today. I mean, planetary weather logs, lore documents, historical timelines, metaphysical charts, all just to figure out how an ecosystem like this doesn't just survive, but actually thrives.
And it is a phenomenal collection of data, primarily because it forces us to discard our terrestrial biases.
Earth biases, right?
Exactly. Because on Earth, we expect the environment to be a passive stage where biology plays out. Like the mountains just sit there while we build cities.
Yeah, the Earth doesn't really care what we do. It just exists.
But on Yaenddarr, the planet is an active, aggressive participant. We are looking at a closed-loop ecosystem where magic and physics are in a constant, high-stakes wrestling match.
A wrestling match is a great way to put it.
Every single biological and cultural adaptation we see is a direct response to that tension. The planet pushes, and the people have to push back just to survive.
Okay, let's unpack this, because there is a sheer volume of source material we are tackling today.
There really is. It's a lot of ground to cover.
And to really understand how wild this ecosystem is, we have to start at the brightest, loudest, and arguably most dangerous point on the map.
Oh, absolutely. The neon sandbox itself.
Yes. Let's head straight into Summer Bay, because the aesthetic described in the lore here is just unbelievable.
It's sensory overload in the best and worst ways.
Truly. It is a perpetual, massive 1980s beach-themed city.
Just endless coastline.
Yeah. So if you are trying to picture this, learner, mash up the neon-soaked excess of Vice City, the Art Deco, and endless beaches of Miami, and then throw in the high-octane energy of Daytona.
And then multiply that scale by 100.
Right, exactly, and just string it along an endless planetary coastline.
And that aesthetic is not just a stylistic choice by the inhabitants. I mean, it is an auditory and visual assault by design.
By design. Wait, so the neon is functional?
Well, the entire culture of Summer Bay is built around constant maximum capacity energy output. The architecture, the lighting, the urban planning, it is all constructed to facilitate movement and noise.
Okay, and high energy barely covers it based on what I read. I mean, the sources detail a culture defined by wild spring breaks, wet t-shirt contests, topless parties.
Blasting 80s music on literally every single avenue.
Yes, there is no quiet residential zoning here. You can't just go to the suburbs and relax.
No, quiet does not exist in Summer Bay.
And they have the legal consumption of what the text referred to as space drugs, which just makes the atmosphere even more chaotic.
It is total indulgence.
Their official planetary slogan is literally, "Cut loose and let your hair down," which, on the surface, just sounds like an interstellar tourist trap.
It does sound like that. But the underlying sociology is what makes this biome critical to the ethereal star system.
How so?
Well, the relentless partying isn't just hedonism. It is a deeply ingrained cultural imperative tied to their millennia-long rivalry with another city on the planet.
Oh, cosmosis.
Exactly, cosmosis.
Yeah, cosmosis is on the total opposite end of the spectrum, too. I mean, if Summer Bay is a sun-drenched neon beach party, cosmosis is like a dark, smog-choked underground cyberpunk rave.
It is all edge, shadows, and industrial beats.
Yeah.
Very grim.
And this epic rivalry between the two cities, a conflict that the sources say has lasted for thousands of years, is settled not through militarized warfare, but through massive annual Dance battles.
Dance battles and rival music festivals, yes.
Okay, wait, I have to push back on this. Because when I was reading the lore documents, I genuinely thought I was misinterpreting the translation.
It sounds absurd, I know.
It is a millennia-old planetary rivalry between incredibly powerful cosmic beings who can manipulate reality is settled by dance battles.
Yes.
It is like if the Cold War was decided by a breakdancing competition. How does that possibly work on a geopolitical scale? Like, if one city loses the dance battle, do they cede territory?
Well, the absurdity of it is entirely the point. To understand why this works, we have to look at the mechanics of Yaenddarr as a living entity.
Okay, so the planet is involved in the rivalry.
Intimately involved. The planet is highly reactive to the emotional and physical states of its inhabitants. It possesses a form of psychometric resonance.
Psychometric resonance, so it feels what they feel.
Precisely. If the populations of these massive, dense urban centers were to engage in actual warfare, dropping bombs, mobilizing armies, shooting each other, the sheer volume of negative emotional resonance would be catastrophic.
You mean the collective trauma and malice?
Yes, that concentrated hatred would literally poison the ground. The physical terrain would mutate, warp, and become fundamentally uninhabitable.
Wow. So if they harbor genuine hatred and act on it violently, the planet retaliates by destroying the battlefield.
Exactly. The planet cannot process mass, concentrated trauma without catastrophic environmental collapse. It would tear itself apart.
So they can't fight a real war even if they wanted to.
Right. Therefore, the dance battles, the rival festivals, the endless exhausting partying in Summer Bay, it is an evolutionary pressure valve.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
It allows millions of beings to channel their competitive aggression, tribalism, and social friction into a massive release of energy that doesn't generate malice.
So they are weaponizing joy.
Weaponizing joy to keep the ecosystem stable. The culture of total abandon is a survival mechanism.
That completely reframes the entire concept of a party for me.
They aren't just out there having a good time.
Right. They are dancing because if they stop moving, if they let the social pressure build into actual conflict, the ground beneath their feet will eat them alive.
It is a geopolitical strategy disguised as a beach rave.
That is wild.
And this extreme expenditure of energy is deeply connected to the extreme nature of their environment.
Which brings us to the weather in Summer Bay. And this is the lethal part of the vacation I mentioned at the top of the show, learner.
Yes, the ecstasy heat cycle.
We need to walk through this because this counterintuitive, genuinely a terrifying weather pattern, reading the meteorological data in these sources actually made me sweat just sitting at my desk.
I don't blame you. The thermodynamics of the ecstasy heat cycle completely upend standard planetary physics.
Completely.
What's fascinating here is that it reverses the expected relationship between a star and a planetary surface.
Okay, let's track it chronologically for the listener so they understand how crazy this is.
Sure.
So dawn breaks over the neon coastline. The daylight cycle begins. It starts at a balmy 90 degrees Fahrenheit at sunrise.
Which is warm, certainly.
Right, for a beach town, 90 degrees at dawn is definitely hot, but you expect it, it's summer.
You grab a cold drink, and you manage.
Yeah. And as the 80s avenues wake up and the music starts pumping, the temperature slowly climbs. It hits 92 degrees mid-morning.
Very typical tropical progression so far.
And then it peaks at an oppressive 98 degrees during the afternoon.
Up to this point, we're looking at a standard, albeit slightly aggressive, tropical climate curve.
Sweaty, but survivable.
Right. The solar energy is hitting the surface, heating the atmosphere, and the inhabitants are sweating, but they are having fun.
But then the sun goes down, and this is where the environment becomes aggressively hostile.
This is the anomaly.
Because after dark, right around 10 p.m., the solar energy that the bay absorbed all day doesn't dissipate into the night sky.
It doesn't cool off.
No. The sources describe it radiating upward from the ground itself. This creates what they call the ecstasy heat.
It is a terrifying shift.
The temperature doesn't drop, it spikes to 120 degrees in the pitch black of night.
See, on Earth, the ground releases heat at night, but it diffuses into the much cooler atmosphere, causing an overall drop in temperature.
Right, that's why nights are colder.
But on Yaenddarr, the specific geological composition of Summer Bay acts as a thermal amplifier rather than a heat sink.
A thermal amplifier, so the sand itself makes it hotter.
Yes. The energy doesn't diffuse, it compounds. The latent heat trapped in the quartz and neon-infused sands is violently expelled upward.
Violently expelled.
It creates a localized greenhouse effect that is entirely geothermic in nature.
And it compounds into what the locals call the sin hours.
the deadliest part of the cycle.
This is the absolute peak of the night. The beach parties are amplified to their absolute maximum, the bass is shaking the ground, and the temperature hits a staggering 180 degrees.
180 degrees Fahrenheit.
Think about that for a second, learner. Water boils at 212 degrees.
So you are getting very close to boiling.
At 180 degrees, you are essentially inside an oven on a slow roast setting.
It is a culinary temperature.
Imagine you are out on a boardwalk, the sun sets, and suddenly the ambient air temperature is 180 degrees.
The physical shock alone would be devastating.
How does human biology, or even humanoid biology, not just instantly shut down? I mean, the proteins in your body would start denaturing.
Under normal biological conditions, they would perish within 10 to 15 minutes.
It is dead.
You would see immediate hyperthermia, catastrophic cellular breakdown, severe dehydration,
Oh, man.
and eventual combustion of any highly flammable materials nearby. The human body cannot withstand that kind of thermal assault.
It's impossible.
But, as we see repeatedly on Yaenddarr, the environment that creates the peril also provides its own highly specific antidote.
Right, because after the sun hours, the cycle eventually breaks. The temperature drops back down to 100 degrees and then stabilizes at 90 by dawn to start all over again.
But you have to survive those hours first.
Exactly. And to survive those sin hours, the population relies entirely on hydrological salvation.
It is all about the water.
The primary strategy for survival is constant, heavy hydration using Summer Bay's unique native water.
Coupled with remaining in extreme close proximity to the beach itself.
Yes, the water is the magic bullet here. If you drink the local water in Summer Bay, it triggers an instant biological reset in your body.
It rewrites your thermal tolerance.
It doesn't matter that it's 180 degrees outside. Drinking this water drops the consumer's internal body temperature back to a cool, stable baseline.
Which defies physics, again.
Completely. And it somehow grants the physical stamina to keep dancing, keep moving, and physically survive the thermal spike without your organs cooking inside your chest.
The mechanism of this water is remarkable because it isn't just acting as a physical coolant, like ice water.
Right, because if you pour a glass of ice water on a 180-degree day...
The ice melts instantly, and the water boils in minutes.
Yeah.
This native water is fundamentally altering the drinker's cellular resistance to heat. It is a biological upgrade.
But perhaps more importantly, the water induces a specific psychological state, too. The lore refers to it as cooling euphoria.
Yes, the mental component is crucial.
Which explains so much about the culture, because the texts say the cooling euphoria acts as a sensory phasing out of the climate stress.
It numbs the terror.
It's essentially a mild euphoric narcotic built directly into the hydrology of the planet. It shields the mind from the absolute primal panic of being in 180-degree heat.
Which perfectly aligns with the cut-loose culture we discussed.
Right, because if you are sober and aware that the air around you is hot enough to cook a roast,
your primal fight or flight response will trigger a massive panic attack.
you would just scream and try to find a freezer.
Exactly. The cooling euphoria suppresses that panic response and replaces it with bliss.
You just feel amazing while you were standing in an oven.
You pair that with periodic cooling gusts that the bay itself releases every 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, the gusts.
The bay literally exhales to prevent the total incineration of the beachgoers. So you have this perfectly engineered biome.
So the environment is literally dictating the culture. The heat is the physical catalyst.
It engineers the party.
It forces the entire population to gravitate to the water like a moth to a flame. You can't stay in your apartment during the sun hours.
No, if you are indoors away from the beach, you die.
You have to be at the beach, drinking the euphoric water and surrendering to the night. The planet is like the ultimate ruthless club promoter.
That is a brilliant analogy.
You attend the party or you burn.
It mandates the party. The ecosystem requires this massive release of energy to maintain its equilibrium, so it uses lethal heat to drive the population to the one place where they can survive.
Forcing them to consume a substance that makes them dance.
It is a brilliant, terrifying loop of biological manipulation.
And it is a delicate balance, because the sources note that visitors from the cooler biomes, like autumn falls, they often travel to Summer Bay specifically for summer flings.
They want the thrill.
They want to experience the wild culture, but they rely entirely on this enchanted water to survive the climate shock.
They are completely dependent on it.
If a tourist wanders too far from the beach, say they get lost looking for a bathroom, and they lose access to that water during the sin hours, their fun vacation turns into a gruesome death sentence in minutes.
Which actually serves as a perfect pivot to examine those tourists from Autumn Falls.
Oh, let's talk about Autumn Falls.
Because if Summer Bay represents the extreme physical manipulation of its inhabitants, Autumn Falls represents the extreme emotional manipulation.
Yeah, Autumn Falls is wild in a completely different, much more psychological way.
It is very insidious.
The environment exists in a perpetual state of autumn. The foliage is always turning in these warm, beautiful shades of amber, gold, and crimson.
Aesthetically, very pleasing.
Super cozy. But the terrain itself isn't shaped by tectonic plates or normal erosion. It shifts based on emotional pressure.
Yes.
The sources literally refer to this biome as the telenovela town.
It is a deeply invasive environment. In Autumn Falls, romance, gossip, and interpersonal drama aren't just social pastimes.
They are actual physics.
They are the architectural cornerstones of reality. The physical layout of the town responds to the collective emotional state of the people walking its streets.
So privacy fundamentally does not exist there.
Not at all.
The districts are actually named after the emotions they actively amplify. You have Gossip Row, for instance.
A very dangerous place to have a conversation.
Yeah, because where the rumors spoken by the residents literally shape the layout of the alleyways, if there's a massive scandal, the streets might twist into an inescapable labyrinth.
The town traps you in your own drama.
Then you have Heartbreak Square, where it rains even on completely clear days. And it rains entirely because of the melancholic emotional residue left behind on the cobblestones by people who have been rejected there.
The cobblestones possess a form of psychometric reactivity.
Much like the sands of Summer Bay.
Exactly, but tuned to a completely different frequency. You cannot hide your intent or your feelings in Autumn Falls.
The town will physically expose your secrets.
It demands emotional vulnerability. And you mentioned the Lantern District as well.
Right, the Lantern District, where the pathways shift and illuminate based on hope, fear, or longing.
It maps human emotion onto civil engineering.
But the absolute focal point of this emotional exposure is Lover's Fall, the sacred waterfall.
The epicenter of the town's magic.
This is where the biome gets dangerous, but not in a boil you alive kind of way. It is an emotional hazard.
Very hazardous.
If you drink from Lover's Fall, the water grants you vivid visions of past loves. It inextricably binds you to the town's ongoing telenovela drama.
It forces you into the narrative.
If you just look into the water, the reflection reveals your true love. And the lore stresses that the reflection never lies.
Which can ruin lives if you are, say, married to someone else.
Exactly. But if you bathe in it, that is when the absolute chaos starts.
Bathing in Lover's Fall essentially paints an invisible, highly potent, pheromonal and magical target on your back.
It makes you a walking magnet for romance chaos.
You are instantly subjected to love triangles.
Sudden dramatic confessions in the street.
Unexpected admirers coming out of nowhere.
Just intense emotional turbulence all day long.
We also have to analyze the culinary extensions of this biome, specifically the Autumn Falls Bakery.
Oh, the bakery. I loved reading about this. Famous for the apple crescent pie.
Yes.
The text states that taking a bite of this pie doesn't just taste good. It literally plays an emotional, sweeping musical score in your head.
An auditory hallucination triggered by pastry.
Yes, and it triggers a massive wave of euphoric nostalgia for your first love.
Which, again, binds you tighter to the emotional frequency of the town.
Honestly, let me pose a question to you right now.
Go for it.
Which biome is actually more dangerous? Enduring a 180-degree beach party in Summer Bay, or taking a sip of water in Autumn Falls that guarantees you'll accidentally propose to someone within a week?
It's a tough call.
I mean, it is basically an emotional bioweapon.
Well, while Summer Bay threatens your physical existence, Autumn Falls threatens your free will.
Yeah, that is terrifying.
It is a highly potent form of psychological manipulation. But the underlying pattern connecting these two wildly different locations is profound.
What's the link?
Both Summer Bay and Autumn Falls utilize enchanted water as the primary mechanism for regulating their inhabitants' biology and psychology.
Oh, wow. It is the water doing the heavy lifting in both places.
Precisely. In Summer Bay, the hydrology resets biology to withstand lethal thermal pressure. In Autumn Falls, the hydrology resets psychology to enforce dramatic emotional bonds and social entanglement.
So the planet Yaenddarr is using its water table to actively control population behavior.
It is treating the people like components in an engine.
Fluid dynamics designed to keep the gears turning.
It acts as an autonomic nervous system on a planetary scale.
That is insane.
The water is the blood, carrying the necessary localized hormones in summer bay. It is thermal resistance and euphoria. In autumn falls, it is nostalgia and romantic attachment.
And it carries those hormones to the organs, which are the cities themselves.
Exactly.
That is beautifully poetic, but also deeply unsettling.
It means you are entirely at the mercy of the landscape.
You have no real autonomy. And if we move away from these elementally driven natural biomes and look at the extreme urban environments, that lack of control becomes even more stark, just in a different flavor.
Yes, moving into the industrial zones.
Which brings us back to Cosmosis, the great rival to Summer Bay.
Cosmosis is a triumph of engineering, but it is also a monument to severe disparity.
It is a vertical titan of a city. It literally pierces the stratosphere, and it is split definitively, brutally in two.
The upper and lower levels.
Yeah, you have the upper level. This is pure high sci-fi, anti-gravity technology everywhere. Blinding neon lights, floating flying cars, sky rails.
Everything gleams.
It is so utterly crowded with personal vehicles and drone wings that falling to your death is mathematically impossible.
Which is a fascinating detail.
The lore actually says if you fall off a platform, someone or some automated safety net will catch you before you ever hit the ground.
He is a technological safety net designed so the elite never have to face the consequences of gravity.
Literally or metaphorically.
Exactly.
But beneath all of that, you have the lower level, the slums.
A completely different world.
Buried entirely beneath the smog, the exhaust, and the literal physical shadow of the upper level. It is an anarchic, lawless, scavenging society.
Very Mad Max meets cyberpunk.
Yeah. The sky is completely blocked by pollution, and the text notes the air down there actually tastes like rust.
Visceral.
The true tragedy of Cosmosis is that both halves exist in the same exact geographic space, but neither really interacts with the other.
Isolation by design.
The upper level engineered their society to completely forget the lower level exists, and the lower level just looks up and sees a smog-choked, impenetrable sky.
It is the ultimate physical realization of class stratification.
Yeah.
It is inequality engineered directly into the architecture of the city. The elite use their advanced technology to isolate themselves from the chaos of the lower class.
And it is fascinating how the elite in Cosmosis use that architecture to isolate themselves, because when we look at the source files regarding Earth,
This is where it gets very close to home.
yeah, we see a much more insidious, invisible method of isolation here. According to the Earth versus Yaenddarr timeline in our sources, there is a massive, secret, interdimensional conflict happening right now on our planet.
Heavily reliant on suppression.
Right. The lore details that Earth actually made contact with Yaenddarr in the past, but a megacorporation on Earth, known as the Monolith, completely scrubbed the encounter from all historical records.
They erased the truth of magic from Earth's history.
And the Monolith didn't just hide the truth. They are actively suppressing the descendants of Yaenddarr who currently live on Earth.
Keeping them dormant.
And the way they do it is terrifyingly mundane. They use a network of dampener spires.
Hidden in plain sight.
The lore states these spires are disguised as 5G nodes and smart street lamps across New York City.
Now, as a quick aside for the listener, we're purely discussing the fictional lore of this universe as it is written in these source documents.
Right. We are talking about magic and alternate dimensions, not real-world telecommunications or politics.
We are just relaying the story.
Exactly, just the lore. But in the context of this story, these 5G nodes emit a subsonic frequency called the hum.
The hum, yes. The physics of the hum, within the context of the lore, operates on the principle of acoustic masking and destructive interference.
What does that mean in practical terms?
It acts as a vibrational cage. It grounds the human spirit and ensures that the latent Yaenddarr DNA, which operates on a specific, highly active magical frequency, remains dormant inside these descendants.
Oh, I see. So it is like a massive citywide noise-canceling headphone, but instead of canceling sound, it cancels their magical genetic expression.
A very apt analogy. It flattens their potential.
Wow.
It creates an artificially oppressed dreg class.
Forcing these descendants into a cycle of permanent debt.
Yes, keeping them trapped in the lowest rungs of society, much like the lower level of Cosmosis, but achieved through frequency rather than concrete.
It is a frequency that literally keeps them poor and powerless.
Invisible chains.
But then the timeline details the awakening, the catalyst for an urban uprising in New York City. The sources refer to it as the Great Discharge or the Big Bang.
A phenomenal event in the lore. It manifests as a massive meteorological anomaly,
Right, a 3-day supernatural violet storm hits New York City.
characterized by relentless gale winds, harsh rain, and a specific type of violet sleet.
And the sleet is the key, isn't it?
Yes, the ice coats the 5G dampener spires across the city, muffling the suppression grid just enough to create a vulnerability in the network.
A tiny window of opportunity. And then, at the climax of the storm, a colossal EMP lightning strike hits the center of the city.
It completely fries the monolith's dampeners.
The hum finally stops.
And in that sudden, profound silence, the genetic suppression lifts across the city.
This is where we are introduced to a character named Jack.
Yes, Jack's awakening.
He's living in a crumbling brownstone on West 147th Street. During this massive lightning strike, an invisible, etheric shockwave passes right through his building.
Right through him.
He doesn't get electrocuted. Instead, the shockwave violently strips away the lingering effects of the dampener from his DNA.
It unlocks his latent ability.
A magic system called Technomancy.
Technomancy being the ability to seamlessly manipulate, rewrite, and command digital and mechanical technology simply by touch or kinesis.
Jack is suddenly a walking supercomputer who can talk to machines.
A nightmare for the Monolith Corporation.
And because he has a royal Yaenddarr heritage hidden in his bloodline, his presence in nature-rich environments on Earth, specifically when he enters Central Park, allows him to tear holes in reality.
Dimensional breaching.
He can open portals directly to his royal resource vault back on Yaenddarr. Suddenly, he can bring back infinite, high-quality, otherworldly resources.
Entirely bypassing the monolith's oppressive economic system. He becomes completely self-sufficient in a second.
If we look at the thematic contrast here, it is brilliant world building.
It really is. Because Earth's elite, the Monolith Corporation, they spend all their resources trying to suppress extreme energy.
Right.
They try to build a flatline city using dampener spires because they are terrified of the unpredictable, chaotic nature of magic and raw emotion.
They want control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yaenddarr, on the other hand, fully embraces it. Cities like Cosmosis and Summer Bay run wild on extreme energy.
The Earth Corporation fears the very magical forces that power Yaenddarr's daily existence. It is such a stark difference. I mean, think about it, learner. While the people of Summer Bay are drinking magic water to survive 180-degree beach parties.
Jack in NYC is having to use ancient unlocked technomancy just to bypass a broken, oppressive corporate subway scanner.
Earth is using high technology to stifle human potential, while Yaenddarr uses high magic to push potential to its absolute lethal breaking point.
And breaking point is the operative concept here.
Yeah.
Because we have to ask, what happens when that potential is pushed too far? What happens to the individuals who cannot handle the extremes?
The ones who fail.
Right. The tourist who loses their water during the 180-degree sin hours. Or the scavenger who falls prey to the violent labyrinths of the Cosmosis slums.
They die.
Yes.
But death on Yaenddarr is not an ending. It isn't a final game over screen. The sources explicitly detail that death is a highly structured system.
It is an industry almost.
It operates as a curriculum, a massive sorting mechanism, and a planetary contract.
There are 3 primary paths of resurrection on the planet, and they are strictly segregated based on origin and circumstance.
Okay, let's go through them.
The first is the Elixir waters.
This is the sacred path, right? Deep within the Elysium forest, there are glowing lakes possessing natural resurrection qualities.
Yes, native magic.
If the corpse of a native inhabitant is brought to the Elixir, the body is restored, their trauma is gently erased, and the soul is refreshed and returned to life.
It is a gentle restorative process.
It sounds beautiful, but there is a massive caveat in the text. This is strictly, exclusively for native-born inhabitants.
And that distinction is vital for planetary survival.
Why?
Because a large percentage of the residents on Yaenddarr are actually off-worlders beings who migrated from other systems or dimensions, like Earth.
Right.
When an off-worlder dies, they cannot use the Elixir. They must be processed through the second path, the Darkwood cycle.
And the Darkwood cycle is much more intense.
Significant.
Off-worlders are cremated, which physically unmoors their soul and sends it to a spiritual realm called Darkwood.
It is a trial realm.
Yeah, here they have to process their fear, their disorientation, and all their cosmic baggage. Eventually, often after multiple deaths and cycles through Darkwood, they graduate to Phantasm,
which the lore describes as a sort of mega metropolis for the dead.
It is essentially a holding zone, a purgatory functioning as a bustling city. The texts literally call it Vegas for the dead.
A very active afterlife.
They just hang out in the neon afterlife of Phantasm until they are spiritually prepared to return to the living world.
And just to cover all bases, there's a third, very rare path called Unix revival.
Oh, right, the street healers.
Yes. This is a gritty medical body restart performed by highly specialized healers, mostly operating in the violent gladiator arenas of the Cosmosis lower levels.
Where fighters need to be revived instantly to keep the betting pools open.
Exactly. It's brutal and capitalist.
But I want to go back to that strict native versus off-worlder rule for the Elixir waters.
The segregation rule.
Yeah. What happens if an off-worlder's body is put into the sacred Elixir lakes by mistake?
It resulted in an ecological catastrophe.
The catastrophe.
Yes. The Elixir water functions by purifying the soul, gently filtering away fear and trauma. For a native of Yaenddarr, this is manageable. They belong to the ecosystem.
Their trauma is native trauma.
Exactly. But off-worlders carry deep, alien, unresolved trauma from completely different planetary systems.
Like the systemic trauma of Earth's monolith corporation.
Exactly. When the delicate magic of the Elixir tries to filter dense, off-world trauma, the system overloads.
Breaks the filter.
It cannot process the alien emotional weight. It coagulates and creates a hyper-corrupted, toxic physical substance called Ixor.
Ixor, it sounds like a radioactive sludge.
It is the literal, physical manifestation of alien trauma.
That's so dark.
And this black Ixor flows downstream from the pristine Elixir lakes and aggressively empties into a biome known as the Savage Jungle.
And the savage jungle is already an absolute nightmare before the sludge hits it.
It is a very hostile biome.
When the Ixor hits it, the jungle mutates at a terrifying rate. The lore says the Ixor causes massive spikes in localized gravitational pressure,
Making the air thick, toxic, and incredibly difficult to breathe.
it destabilizes the climate, creating violent localized storms. But the absolute worst part is that the Ixor pools together to form inkwells that birth creatures called shadows.
Shaders are living, physical shadows constructed entirely from the trauma of death.
And the texts are clear. Off-world shadows, born from Ixor, are violently unstable.
They possess the strength to completely dominate and terrorize entire sectors of the jungle.
It is essentially a containment zone for the planet's worst mistakes.
Yes, the planet uses the Savage Jungle as a necessary pressure valve, much like the dance battles in Summer Bay, but for spiritual corruption rather than social friction.
Wow.
The entire biome is a crucible designed to contain and break down the toxic byproducts of the resurrection system.
Which leads us to the final and perhaps most brutal extreme of Yaenddarr's ecosystems, the wildling field.
Ah, yes, the evolutionary forge.
If you thought the crushing gravity of the savage jungle was bad, the wildling field is where evolution is literally earned in blood.
It is incredibly violent.
And I want to bring this full circle for the listener. Remember the 180-degree heat we talked about in Summer Bay?
The ecstasy heat during the sin hours.
Right. Well, the wildling field features a massive central area called the Wasteland Battlefield, and it also regularly hits exactly 180 degrees.
The exact same thermal parameter.
But this isn't caused by the ground radiating stored heat like the sand in the bay. It is triggered by an actual orbiting solar star that circles extremely close to the biome.
It bakes the Earth from above.
And I just have to pause and marvel at this connection. I mean, 180 degrees in Summer Bay means wet t-shirt contests, blasting 80s music, and drinking euphoric water to survive a massive party.
A social event.
But 180 degrees in the wildling field means brutal gladiatorial combat designed to mutate your own DNA.
Talk about a completely different spring break vibe.
Seriously.
But it is a stunning example of parallel environmental mechanics.
How so?
You have the exact same extreme thermal pressure applied to two entirely different biological and cultural paradigms.
Right.
In Summer Bay, the heat enforces hedonism, social bonding, and communal survival. In the wildling field, the heat acts as a genetic forge.
Explain how that works, because the creatures out there aren't human, right?
No, the dominant species in the wildling field are the Ferras. Massive, highly intelligent, hypercarnivorous apex predators.
So they are monsters.
Deadly ones. And they don't hide from the 180-degree heat waves. They utilize them.
Wait, they go out in the heat on purpose.
They actively seek out combat during these solar spikes. They fight each other to the death, and the sheer combination of thermal stress, Physical trauma and adrenaline forces the survivors to undergo rapid mid-combat evolutionary shifts.
They mutate in real time just to survive the fight.
Yes,
There is a line from the text that gave me absolute chills when I read it. It said, "Victory here is not about survival, it's about transformation."
that sums it up perfectly.
They are literally using the lethal temperature to rewrite their own biology on the battlefield.
It is spectacular adaptation. And when we pull all the way back and synthesize this entire planetary
The
ecosystem,
big picture.
yes, the horrifying genius of Yaenddar's design becomes apparent. It is a perfectly balanced, albeit extremely violent, closed loop.
Every single extreme biome serves a vital, irreplaceable planetary function.
Yes. Let's track that loop because it is fascinating.
Okay, let's do it.
You start with the emotional runoff and psychological entanglement of Autumn Falls,
Right, the telenovela drama.
which likely generates and feeds the empathic resonance needed by the planet's core to remain self-aware and reactive,
It gives the planet feelings.
essentially. Then you have the massive technological disparity and competitive excess of Cosmosis,
The cyberpunk rivalry.
which acts as a lightning rod for ambition, progress, and aggression, preventing wide-scale, planet-destroying war by keeping the elite distracted and the lower class suppressed.
Wow. And then you have the hedonistic, chemically induced survival mechanism of Summer Bay.
The party.
Right, which processes raw, lethal solar energy and converts it into communal joy, venting social pressure before it can corrupt the terrain.
And finally, you have the deadly purification systems of Darkwood and the violent evolutionary crucibles of the savage jungle and the wildling field.
The garbage disposals of the planet.
Exactly. Which digest the physical and spiritual waste of the entire system.
The trauma, the weakness, the Ixor, it is all broken down by gravity and combat.
The planet's biomes are literally its internal organs. Yaenddarr is actively digesting the physical and spiritual energy of the people who live on it, using extreme heat, enchanted water, and raw emotion as its digestive enzymes.
It is just, man, it is an awe-inspiring concept. It cooks my brain a little.
It is a lot to take in.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We've journeyed across a planet where you can party in 180-degree heat just to stop the ground from eating you.
Where you can accidentally get married because you ate a slice of enchanted apple pie.
Or where you can unlock ancient technomancy during a violent violet storm in the Bronx.
The extremes of Yaenddarr are undeniably terrifying, yes. But when you look at the mechanics, they are deeply, beautifully functional.
Everything has a purpose.
It does raise a rather profound, lingering question, though, especially when we look back at the situation unfolding on Earth.
With Jack and the Monolith.
Yes, we know that Yaenddar's environment aggressively shifts and mutates based on the collective emotions, traumas, and actions of its people.
Right, psychometric resonance.
If that latent magic exists within Earth's population, what would happen to Earth if the monolith's dampeners were completely destroyed?
Everywhere, not just New York.
Exactly. The Great Discharge only affected New York City. But if the global 5G grid fell, and the latent Yaenddarr DNA awakened in millions of oppressed people all at once,
Oh, man.
would our cities begin to physically mutate?
Because the magic would suddenly be active in the concrete.
Would the concrete and steel of a city like New York transform into a toxic savage jungle fueled by centuries of corporate trauma?
Or perhaps it would twist into an Autumn Falls, born from the collective, violently suppressed desires of its newly awakened citizens. Now that is a thought to keep you up at night. Imagine walking to work and the subway tunnels have turned into Ixor wells full of shadow monsters.
It is a very real possibility in this lore.
Well, learner, thank you so much for coming along on this deep dive with us today. It has been an absolutely wild ride from the neon beaches of Summer Bay to the concrete canyons of Earth.
It was a pleasure to break it down.
Remember to stay curious, keep questioning the reality around you.
And stay hydrated.
Yes, stay hydrated, especially if the thermostat suddenly spikes to 180 degrees at night. Keep diving deep. Until next time.